Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Oh man, property tax increases again. Homeowners insurance premiums are going up too. These are good. Bills from contractors, look at the hourly wage on that thing. Water, gas, electric. Well, this stuff's going through the roof. And finally, HOA fees. My goodness. What's a saver to do? Well, let's find out.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, Tony Walker. And today, before we get started, let me introduce to you in the studios, as always, helping to produce this show on May 21st, 2024, America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Now, I know we've already covered a little bit about the issue of housing cost in retirement, but I think this is such an important issue. And again, seeing as though generally housing costs are the biggest expenses that not only are in the first part of retirement, but well into the second half of life, and in fact, sometimes become the biggest predicament for expenses dealing with our aging process that we all go through. So because of that, we've got a bunch of articles to cover. I've got a great whiteboard segment coming up later. We're also going to be talking later on with our own Juanita Jackson and just talking about the number of distributions we send regularly through our Charles Schwab platform to our many clients who have housing expense issues. But before we get into the meat of the show, let me introduce to you my favorite son-in-law and favorite fiduciary. Come on in. There he is again, Mr. Trey Juergens. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me back again.
Oh, yeah, this has been fun. And I told you with this new podcast format, not only you would be on TV more regularly, but again, a lot of our staff. And we just appreciate your willingness to get on TV. You're doing a great job. I don't know, you seem to not be crazy about this, but you do a great job.
It's fine. I think it's cool for our clients and those watching to see more of our staff. That's really the bread and butter of Tony Walker Financial.
That's right. And then next week, we'll have my favorite nephew on Wes. Great show coming up next week, folks, as we really dive in to the investment world. And I know people might say, well, Tony, I thought you dealt with savers. I didn't know you dealt with investments. I mean, folks, we have over 2,400 accounts with Charles Schwab. That's our investment platform. And I think as of this date, what are we up to, about $265 million under management?
Correct, right now.
It was interesting. We'll get into the housing thing in a minute, but I wanted to share this with you, and we'll talk more about it next week with Wes. But I didn't realize the average amount of assets under management with an independent like us, money manager, is less than $100 million.
Yeah, that transition from state registration over to SEC, that threshold is about $110 million. We crossed that back in 2022, which required us to now be registered under the SEC.
But were you aware that the majority of advisors, I figured most of them would be even way more than what we've got, but apparently at 265 or whatever, that's pretty high for an independent organization.
I'd say so.
Real proud of, Shannon Ross, who kind of kicked this off in 2017, resurrected the Schwab program. Obviously, Juanita, you'll be meeting later. Obviously, what you've done, Heather, Beth Wisman, Craig Davis. I'm just trying to think of all the people involved with Schwab. It's a lot of people now. We have Wes, who have a touch on that program, and it's become a vital part of what we do here.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and in fact, you're going to see in a little while on the whiteboard, we're going to have that person A, person B later on, and how we use the Charles Schwab platform to pay off the house a little earlier. So that's kind of cool. All right, Trey, so picking things back up here, I don't even know where to start, really. You have done a great job between you, Aaron, Derek, and then Gina Tutwiler. I've tasked you all with the process, if you will, of finding articles. Let's try to pull those articles together and come up with a theme for the show. So kind of give me an idea of what you all have come up with.
Yeah, with our income planning and laying all this out for clients, one thing we've seen is just the rising cost of several things. One of those in particular is housing. And what we've really seen, I mean, property taxes, homeowners insurance, maintenance and repairs, utilities, HOA or condo fees. I mean, all these costs, I was so proud of this list, and I was like, well, that's really just every cost associated with housing. So when we boil it down, there's articles that back up each of these, but we're seeing it every day. When these clients come in and distributions that we send out, that flexibility of the Schwab platform that Juanita will talk about, we have so many distribution requests. A lot of those we can increase monthly just to give you a little bit more cash flow. That's why the flexibility that we have is so nice for our clients.
And I think people are surprised, our normal fee, unless they're huge accounts, and they can get a little cheaper than this. But, the 0.8% that we charge, which is well below the industry average, the amount of work that goes into that we never charge an extra fee for. And in fact, with Schwab, in almost 99% of the cases, there's never any transaction cost back to the client to get their money back to them.
Right. That's a huge thing. I mean, in retirement planning, one thing we can do is cut costs. With housing going up, one thing you could consider doing is making sure your fees on your investment accounts are going down. So very, very few times have we ever seen a client with lower fees than what we're able to provide, unless it's self-managed.
And I'm not to say a lot of times, folks, we're ahead of the curve here, but I've been doing retirement planning so long. One of the things I started recommending, even thinking about 8 to 10 years ago, and I can remember even some clients were like, are you kidding me? But we'll cover this article, and that's renting. And again, by the way, folks, this is a serious topic. I'm not suggesting what we're going to say you need to run out and do. But, years ago, I used to tell people from a cash flow perspective, remember, retirement is about cash flow, folks. Sometimes I thought it might be cheaper just to rent, especially if you get into really further in that second half. This article came out in Investment News, and it literally says this: as home prices climb again, it's cheaper to rent in the largest metro areas. So your thoughts on that, Dre?
Well, it is interesting. I mean, obviously you can cut out property taxes, you can cut down on insurance. Maybe you have a renter's insurance policy, but two of the big ticket items are gone immediately. And as you always say, when there are bats in the attic, you don't have to worry about getting them out yourself. You call somebody and they take care of it.
Yeah, and that's speaking of a big category is maintenance. When we get into retirement planning and cash flow, one of the biggest dangers out there is somebody not having enough after-tax money and an air conditioner goes out, or a major windstorm damages something and they've got a high deductible. Again, folks, we're not saying you should rent, but I mean, think about this, Trey. Yeah, if you're renting, if the air conditioner goes out, if the wind, blows off your roof or whatever the heck happens, like I said, it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah,
you don't have to come up with that money.
That's true.
So one more article I've got to cover, because this falls in with the gifting. This was an interesting article. Boomerang kids putting finances at risk for themselves and their parents. So let's define boomerang kid. What's a boomerang kid, Trey?
They go live off on their own, but all of a sudden they're back dwelling in the basement, as they say.
And folks, this is happening more and more. I just met with a client yesterday, and sometimes it's through nobody's fault of their own. They have an adult child, apparently had some drug issues. The child went through a divorce. This is an adult child, has a 7-year-old. So like the mom's like, well, I'm not going to let him live on the street. So she's taking him back in. Now, what's interesting is they're going to try to figure out a way for the young lady, because she's going to go back to school. Mm-hmm. She's doing fine, recovering well. I mean, it's a wonderful story, actually. But this kind of rocked the mom's world. The mom was going to retire in a couple of years. That ain't going to happen. She said, I'm probably going to have to work a little while longer. But speak to the fact of our clients and how much saver clients do want to try to help their kids, especially if they get in these predicaments like the boomerang kids.
Right. A lot of our clients, I mean, family's everything. They're going to take care of their children. A lot of the time, grandchildren also. And I've been to the grocery a lot here lately with 3 kids of my own. And with Lacey, I mean, we know these costs are going up. So if you're bringing children and grandchildren back under the roof, your monthly costs are only going up.
And then we got to have some fun here, because this was maybe a week or two ago. I can't remember, but we did something on reverse mortgages. Do you remember that? I got to cover this. It isn't funny, but in the reverse mortgage ad, we featured Tom Selleck, and you may have seen this ad. It's actually a pretty good ad, but I thought, wonder why Tom Selleck is doing reverse mortgage ads. And I'm not sure if this is it, but I thought this was interesting. You sent me this when Blue Bloods went off the air, which Tom Selleck was on, right? I guess these are the reruns.
I think it was #1 show in the world for a while.
I think this is Derek's favorite show of all time.
He's a big Tom Selleck guy.
But anyway, they're interviewing Tom Selleck, and basically from this article, it sounds like his ranch, which he owns in Ventura County, he might have to sell. Did you see this?
I heard he didn't have enough mailbox money.
I think it was not enough mailbox money. So Tom Selleck, you should have gotten with Tony Walker Financial several years ago when those Blue Bud royalties were coming in. So it just goes to show you, folks, that basically when you get into cash flow and retirement planning, this housing issue is a big deal. So here's what I would suggest right now. Won't you put this up full screen, Aaron? I would go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started. Now, who would want to go there based on this? It would be anybody that's getting ready to retire. Trey, it might be anybody who has lost a spouse recently. This comes up a lot.
It does.
Somebody loses a spouse, and I don't want to be stereotypical, but a female, her and her husband live on 5 acres out here in Oldham County or something, he dies. She's not going to get on that zero turn. She's going to try to downsize. So basically, it might be that situation. It could be even a couple. We worked with a couple in their late 80s that recently moved into assisted living. What are they going to do with a house? Are there capital gains? All these things we can help with. So if that's you folks, if this has been a kind of a dilemma, or maybe your adult children and you're watching your parents go through this and having a tough time having these kind of conversations, I think it would behoove you again to go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started. We can have a free appointment, a consultation, or if the internet's not your thing and you just want to call us 24/7, just give us a call at 877-499-9255. Did you realize that if you have more than $250,000 in retirement assets, the government could tax as much as 40% of it when you go to take it out? And with current tax rates set to expire in 2025, the taxes you will owe on your 401k could climb even higher. Don't wait until 2025 to see how much Uncle Sam will take of your money. Get a game plan by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Hi, I'm Juanita Jackson, and I'm responsible for establishing all new accounts with Charles Schwab at our firm. Today, we're talking about home expenses and distributions that are related to those. I'd like to give you a few examples of how you might call us for help with distributions with home-related expenses. You may be interested in purchasing a new home or a vacation property. Retirement income can be used to qualify for a mortgage or possibly a bridge loan. The housing market's competitive right now, and we're seeing more bridge notes all the time. This could give you an edge on an accepted non-contingent offer. You can call us to start monthly recurring distributions and ask for a proof of funds letter for your lender. This provides evidence of your ability to pay for the home. We just need you to determine the amount that you need and the day each month you would like to receive the funds. We'll get it set up for you. If you're ready to do a kitchen remodel or you've had property damage due to a storm, you can call us to request what's called a one-time distribution to cover those expenses. If it's a large distribution, however, don't be surprised when we take a look at the income plan to assess the impact of this large withdrawal. We want to keep you on track. And if you're considering a major renovation, call us. We can make an appointment to discuss the project costs and review the income plan to ensure that you're still on track with your financial goals. Property tax time is another time when we may get a wave of calls from clients who want to replenish their emergency cash savings after making those property tax payments. Wes and Shannon can quickly raise cash and send the funds directly to your bank account. Maybe you're ready to pay off your mortgage. Likely we discussed this with you during the initial planning phase as your income plan was being developed. It might be possible to pay off the mortgage in the same year. Or TJ and Leanne in our tax planning department may have determined that it's more beneficial to spread that payoff out across 2 years. We'll process those distributions directly to your bank account and you can pay off your mortgage directly. If you've got questions about any of these distribution types or any other questions, please don't hesitate to call. We're here to help you.
There's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion about the hearts and minds of savers, what makes them tick financially, and what keeps them up at night. And nowhere is this more misunderstood by most in the financial world who try to approach retirement planning from the mind of an investor and not that of a saver. And possibly worse yet, not even understanding how to properly count the cost of what they are telling these savers to do when it comes to paying off their home in retirement. For instance, take a listen to this so-called retirement income expert telling savers why they should not take large sums of money to pay off their homes.
Right? Many people want to pay off their mortgage in retirement. We want that money compounding as much as possible. A mortgage at 7% over 30 years, you end up paying a $500,000 mortgage, you'll pay $1.1 million over the 30 years. If you allow that $500,000 to compound at 5%, a lower rate than the mortgage, you end up with over $2.2 million, an extra $1 million available for you after 30 years in retirement.
So basically, and not trying to be condescending to this young man, but he is not understanding opportunity costs. So let's just go full screen and kind of explain what he's talking about. If you take the raw numbers, this is accurate what he said. If you had a 30-year mortgage at 7% interest, over the next 30 years, you would have actually effectively paid in to that mortgage. The cost is $1.2 million. Okay, great. Then he did a future value calculation. Let's go with that. That's $500,000 at 5%, which in around 30 years is going to be around $2.2 million. That is correct. Those numbers are correct, and that's why he says, yeah, don't pay off the home. Take the $500,000 and invest it. But there's a huge problem there because he is not accounting for what's called opportunity cost. Folks, you can't just run the numbers like that. You have to take the cost of the mortgage and quantify it at 5%. I know this is confusing, but you have to do it that way, which when you do that, now the cost of the mortgage is not 1.2, it's closer to 2.8 million when you factor in opportunity cost. So the theory of using a lump sum and assuming 5% goes out the window. The next thing he's not accounting for, and this is what savers don't like. Savers like guarantees. And when you think about it, when you have a 7% mortgage, that's a guaranteed cost. In other words, you're losing 7% per year for 30 years. This young man assumes you can make 5% guaranteed for 30 years on an investment, and that is not guaranteed. There's nothing out there that'll guarantee that for 30 years. So it's just not an accurate way to calculate things. Now there's a second issue, and that deals with, okay, Tony, what could I do? If I'm one of these savers and I want that home paid off, well, let's kind of walk over to the whiteboard and take a look at this instance. So in our example today, we're talking about person A, person B. Both of these are savers, and their objective is to pay off this home as quickly as possible. Now in this example, based on their income, they're each in a 12% tax bracket. Again, the federal taxes are going to expire at the end of 2025, but for now we'll assume they stay the same. This is really important as we think through taxes. In fact, as a retirement planning firm, this is all we do. We do the investing, we do the planning, but we also think through tax strategies like this, and it's very important to understand how these tax brackets work, especially if you're going to take money out of a tax-infested 401k plan to pay off a home. So we have person A, person B. Now, person A, we're going to go with a 5-year strategy, and you're going to see this in a minute, because person A says, Tony, I don't want to go over the 12% bracket in order to pay off the house. Whereas person B says, no, I want to get it paid off now. I don't care if I go into a higher tax bracket. So we're going to see the effects of this and how we can adjust this according to what the client might want to do. Now, person A, as you're going to see, I would rather see them do this, but it's going to lower their taxes, but you never know, somebody may just want to say, I want the thing paid off. Remember, folks, most people in the retirement planning world, this is a new field for them. They don't really understand the emotions and the psychology of a saver. They try to make it too much about the economic side, and sometimes economics weigh second. They don't weigh first. You got to keep that in mind when you're working with savers. Okay, looking at my cheat notes here. So based on this example, okay, we did a calculation. Our own TJ Timmy Reagan. I got to go get Juanita. Derek, I'll be right back. Timmy, thanks again for your help, man.
Is your name Timmy?
No, my name's not Timmy. I don't like being called Timmy. I've never been called Timmy.
Calculated this for us. And we're going to say, TJ, what we did, we said, how much can this person take out based on their current income and stay in this 12% bracket? And what TJ came up with is we can pull out of this tax-infested IRA. Again, we would manage all this, folks. You don't have to do any of this. This is what you're paying us a fee for. By the way, all these planning strategies come at no additional cost to our clients. In this example, we would need this in a Charles Schwab platform. We would charge 0.8% for the Charles Schwab platform, but we do everything. We calculate the taxes, get that money to you, lickety-split with no additional cost. So basically, by taking money out of the IRA over 5 years in an amount of $25,000 per year, in this example, based on the debt, we paid off the house, okay? let's say it was $125,000. But this person in year one says, nope, Tony, I want to pay off that house and I need that $125,000 now. Now the problem is, what happens is part of this, and doesn't matter the percentage, but part of this is going to go into a 22% bracket depending on their current income and how much above the taxable income thresholds go. Again, put this graphic up, Aaron. You can see that real quickly, if we're not careful, it jumps from 12% to 22%. We call that tax bracket creep. So let's say roughly $100,000 went into the 22% bracket. Well, they're going to have to come out of pocket with an extra $22,000. Now, they could pay it out of savings, but if they didn't have savings, that means we're actually going to have to take out probably $150,000 to net the $125,000. So here's the point, folks. If you don't have a retirement planning firm truly working for you on these issues, huge issues of when to take out distributions, how much the taxes are going to be, how are we going to get the money, and where are we going to pull it out from, this is all we do at Tony Walker Financial. So if you're retiring soon, maybe you're looking at possibly an old 401k, maybe even just received an inheritance or sold a piece of property or sold your business, and you need a well thought out game plan that you can count on to take you through retirement, we need to talk. And we made this easy to do. We call it the free fiduciary phone call. So to take advantage of that, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com and just click on that Let's Get Started button. Well, what does the Bible have to say about our earthly homes? Well, it's really good stuff coming up, but Jesus is going to remind us, for those Christians out there who are ready to go to their heavenly homes, we got to be a little more patient, and I'll tell you why. Let me get a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. One of the biggest and most stressful decisions one will make in retirement is where one will ultimately call home. I see this play out all the time with clients who now are well into the second half of life, oftentimes coming to the realization that the home they have called home all their life may no longer be practical to call home. Whether it's living in a home that requires too much maintenance and too many steps to climb, the decision to move from one's home to another can be daunting and stressful at best. Reminds me of the story of one of my men that I taught in the Sunday school class for years, who after trying to convince his aging mother to leave her home and move into an assisted living facility, with her excuse always being to him, "Hey, I can't leave my cats." So after several years, upon her last cat finally passing away, my dear friend made another attempt to convince his mother to move into assisted living by actually convincing her to pay a visit to an assisted living facility. According to him, as they walked up the sidewalk to the doors of this beautiful facility, my friend excitedly exclaimed to his mother, "And guess what, Mom? This place has a house cat that you can enjoy." To which his mother responded to him, "Now what in the world would I want with a cat?" This come to Jesus housing moment of one day realizing that our earthly home will in fact change reminds us that the home we call home here on earth is not a permanent home at all, but merely temporary. That's because all of us, no matter how long we might need an earthly dwelling, one day will not. That's right, folks. I hate to break the news to you, but the one thing we all have in common is that ultimately the story ends the same way for us all. We all die, and we're going to leave these earthly homes forever. Faced with the uncertainty of where our eternal home might be, many struggle with this issue of dying and the uncertainty of not knowing where the next home might be located. That is, unless you are a follower of Jesus Christ, because assuming you are, there's good news in all of this dying stuff and leaving our earthly homes. Check it out. Where in John 14:2, Jesus reminds himself and reminds us of the promises that he's already prepared a place for us in heaven, and not just a home, but according to Scripture, a mansion. This vision of one day being with the Lord of Lords and King of Kings forever does create some anxious moments for us Christians, especially when we know the need for a home here on earth will one day come to an end. In fact, we Christians, knowing by faith that a new and perfect home awaits us in heaven, can sometimes take us to this "come take me home now, Lord" mentality, to which Jesus responds this way to God, found in John 17:15. So why would Jesus need to ask God to keep us in our earthly dwellings just a little bit longer? Well, because Jesus knew what we Christians now know when we get a little taste of God's Holy Spirit. We want more of it. The Apostle Paul struggled with the reality of wanting to go home to be with the Lord, yet understood why Jesus wanted him to stay on earth longer than expected, as he lamented his feelings found in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, 1 through 8. In other words, Paul is reminding us Christians that it's hard to be two places at one time. Of this desire for Christians' desire to be at home with the Lord, the late great theologian Charles Spurgeon said this: "The danger is that Christians want to go home to be with the Lord, but not so much for the Savior's company, but to be at rest." Which begs the question, do we wish to be home with the Lord because we truly wish to be with Him, or because we're tired of being here on earth? Well, here's my advice, Christians. Don't wish that you could be home with the Lord if the Lord wills you to be here on earth. Accept God's plan for you and don't rush the process of moving to your eternal home in heaven. Be content with your home here on earth, knowing that one day, maybe sooner than you think, you and I will be home with the Lord forever. And that's some really good news you and I can take to the bank. Amen? Well, how about you? Do you have a home for your money in retirement? A retirement planning firm that you can call home when it comes to meeting with someone in person that you can trust. A firm that has been providing retirement planning services to savers long before most in the financial world even knew what retirement planning was. Well, if you're looking for a home to park your money, a home that is dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, a home that will make you feel welcomed and appreciated, someplace that'll treat you with dignity and respect, might I invite you to attend a free open house offered by Tony Walker Financial, where we can take you through a brief tour of our services by talking to me directly. That's right, the owner of the company, and we call this process the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how easy it is that we can talk. Simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on that Let's Get Started button. That information will then be confidentially sent to our offices, where we will arrange that phone call. And after the phone call, if it looks like I can be of service, you and I are going to meet in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. If you're retired, retiring soon, maybe you got an old 401k over there languishing around, we are here to help. Not interested in getting on the internet right now? No problem. Just call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.